I think your book is really going to add to this, because once you can sit down and look at those incredibly beautiful images and learn more about the traditions of the organization and thereby knowing more about Mardi Gras, I think people are going to be much more intrigued. Talk to me a little bit about the ducals that the members wear.
The ducal decorations. Every spectacle needs its glitter, and Rex has really brought a lot of glitter to Carnival, and that may start with the crowns worn by the King and Queen of Carnival and their scepters. But there's been a unique form of Carnival jewelry that really started in the second year, in 1873. This inner circle of leaders called dukes of the realm were called on to finance this. And in return, they got a nice scroll that gave them all the rights of their dukedom. But they also got a lovely medallion to wear. Those medallions came from Paris. Each year, the Rex leadership would go overseas and would go into the designer studios and would come back later with crowns, scepters, gowns, pins, and these lovely ducal medallions. And in those days, often they bring home the costumes and some of the float props too, some of the sculptures that would end up on the Rex floats. But the jewelry of Carnival is an exercise in glorious excess. None of this is real, just like the Rex realm is not real. This is illusory, and it's a lovely, imaginative place. But these jewels of paste and pot metal, when they're all put together in those lovely studios, just really, they do glitter. And our collection is not a complete collection. We try to display it to show that part of our history. These medallions now are very, very valuable and sought after by collectors. Our collection here in the Den was flooded during the weeks after Katrina. And those medallions look just awful. We were able to find very skilled artisans who could restore the metal part and even work with those very delicate ribbons. And the medallions we have on display, and some that I have in my book, are examples of that lovely art, and some of it's been preserved from a brush with total loss.
Yeah, yeah. And they're so treasured by members and collectors. You know, if anybody has not seen them, you can go to the New Orleans Museum of Art, to the Historic New Orleans Collection, and other venues in the community, and see absolutely stunning ducal decorations framed on the wall. And you know, it's interesting to me that the Rex organization sort of took another step forward when they gave the community doubloons, began the doubloon frenzy.
I don't even know how many tens of millions of doubloons have been thrown over the years. And it was a really odd beginning. Alvin Sharp, who was an engraver and actually an artistic jack of all trades. He was an etcher and a painter, and just had many interesting pursuits. But he had this idea. At that point, organizations were throwing trinkets from the floats, usually glass beads from Czechoslovakia and other places. But Mr. Sharp had the idea that what could be better than a king throwing money to his subjects. So he was determined to sell this idea to the Rex organization. There was a new captain at that point, Darwin Fenner, who was sitting behind his desk at his brokerage one afternoon when Mr. Sharp insistently made an appointment, came to see him, anticipating that throwing coins would feel inherently dangerous to Mr. Fenner. He brought with him a bag of blank aluminum coins and walked into Mr. Fenner's office and threw them over the desk at him. I can imagine the scene with aluminum blanks dancing all over creation, some of them bouncing off Mr. Fenner, but apparently made the point that these didn't cause any harm, because Mr. Fenner took the bag of doubloons home and threw them on his own table at his own children that evening. So he was at least caught up enough with the idea that this had possibility. So he okayed the project. Mr. Sharp developed a lovely engraving and Rex on one side and the Rex seal on the other side. And Mr. Fenner approved the minting of these coins, called them doubloons. Was not so sure that they'd be successful that he put a date on them. He left them undated, so if they didn't all get thrown that year, they could be used the next year. Well, they were an instant success. The crowds loved them. Over the next few years, every organization minted them, different colors, different sizes, different shapes, and Rex continues to throw doubloons by the millions to the crowds with the emblem of Rex on one side. Now we have the emblem of the theme on the other side, so they change every year. But another innovation, it was the first, this was really the first crew-specific throw. Up to that point it had been generic beads and other trinkets, but this had the Rex sign and logo on it. And look what we have now. I mean, we have everything from koozies to frisbees to everything you can possibly imagine, all specific to the organization throwing those throws. So it's become a huge part of Carnival, and Rex has innovated there as in other areas. But I was intrigued to find, I can still imagine that scene when Alvin Sharp, sort of an eccentric inventor, sold his idea to Mr. Fenner by throwing doubloons at him.
Well, so many people are so fanatic about collecting these and making sure that they get them for the year. It's a great tradition. Another tradition is the anthem of Mardi Gras, If Ever I Cease to Love. Has quite a history.
Yeah. You know, If Ever I Cease to Love is an improbable anthem for a celebration as broad and large as Carnival, and it's not just Rex's anthem. I mean, this is, everyone would identify this as the song most closely sung over the whole celebration. It came from a musical revue called Bluebeard. It was sung by the fair Lydia, who supposedly had something going with the Grand Duke Alexis. But Lydia Thompson was an English singer, and she'd popularized this tune. She was in New Orleans in 1872 when the first Rex Parade occurred. It was a very popular song at the time, so it was a natural choice, and the Rex leaders ordained that that would be the song that would be played for the Grand Duke and in front of the reviewing stand. And it was, and it stuck, and it stayed ever since. It's a nonsense song. In fact, at that time, the lyrics were often changed city to city as the review made its way across the country. But it captured the sort of whimsical quality of this celebration and still does. Now, it's been arranged in every format now. You can hear this as a march. You can hear it at the Rex Ball as a grand march, very majestic version of that. You will hear it jazzy, you'll hear it bluesy, but it is the anthem of Carnival. It was selected to be that in 1872, and 140 years later, it still is.
The public side of the Rex organization is focused on Lundi Gras and Mardi Gras, and there are traditions.
There are traditions, and as the festivities grew and became more and more popular on Tuesday, Rex leaders saw an opportunity to expand a little bit into the Monday before. The old French term for the day before Carnival is Lundi Gras. But that Monday became the day that Rex arrived. After all of his edicts and all of his communications as he made his way to his capital city, on Monday he would arrive, and for many years, this prior to World War I, Rex would arrive by water. Occasionally by train, mostly by either yacht or by steamboat, would arrive at the foot of Canal Street, and there he would be greeted by an enthusiastic crowd. He would step down the gangplank, he would make his way to a special float, he would lead a small parade up Canal Street, turn left on St. Charles Avenue, go to Gallier Hall, and there the mayor would surrender the keys to the city. So it was really the first part of the Rex celebration, and it became a very popular element of that for Many of those years, people wouldn't dream of missing either Monday or Tuesday. So the Monday King celebration was a big part of early Carnival. After he gained the keys to the city, he would retire to his palace, usually the St. Charles Hotel, and wait for the big day the next day. But that celebration really went away after World War I. Many, many years later, the centennial of the Rex Organization in 1971, there was a recreation of that river arrival. A yacht was christened Rex Tide, and a Rex was costumed, and a party really reenacted that ceremony for that 1 year only. 25 years ago this year, Errol Laborde, Carnival historian, approached Rex leaders, approached business and tourism leaders, and the new Riverwalk had just been developed at the foot of Poydras, and Spanish Plaza had been developed. And his idea was that we could do this again, and we could recreate some of that celebration, not only have Rex arrive, but turn it into a whole day party for tourists, which filled up the city. And they pulled that off beautifully. That's become part of the Carnival landscape now. So the Monday celebrations, Rex arrival by river, the Mardi Gras party going on, the mayor meets Rex there. In past years, the Zulu king has also arrived. And there's this enthusiastic gathering that is both reminiscent of old times and emblematic of some very new creations in this world of Carnival.
And that sort of bleeds over to the next morning when a set of traditions began, especially for the king.
Right. You know, as I'd sit in a room like this with all of these past kings watching on, I'm mindful of the tradition of this organization. And I think how many things have been added, but how many things stay very much the same. One of the faces up there, Boatner Riley, past captain of the organization as well as past Rex, was quite a jogger and loved to run in Audubon Park. So the year he was Rex, he decided there would be a royal run. And he had t-shirts made. He arrived at Audubon Park by limousine and led a run for all those who happened to come and show up. That's become a new tradition. So Rex's very busy day usually starts when the limousine picks him up at his home, takes him to Audubon Park. If he's a very fit Rex, he'll run a long way. If he's not such a fit Rex, he'll run not quite so far. But it's become a very popular beginning to the day. And then the day just goes off into a whirl of limousines streaking through the city with their purple, green, and gold flags flying. A busy, busy day at the Den to get made up and have a beard applied to the ceremonies before Rex climbs onto his float and leads his parade down the parade route. And then receptions through the afternoon as Rex gets dressed and presents himself to his subjects for the trip to the ball. A very late night as the courts meet. Old tradition of Rex's court leaving the Rex ball and by some means going to visit the Comus ball, and for those two courts to meet, the public face of Carnival and the older private face of Carnival, greeting, jointly promenading around a ball floor. Really a beautiful and old and very symbolic end of the Carnival season. Those traditions are mostly old. Most of those have been there since the very beginning. Some of them are new, and they add a layer of pleasure and sometimes spectacle to the special celebration. This celebration so defines this city and is so associated with this city. It is broad, it is diverse. Rex plays an important role in anchoring that celebration historically and being its public face. But I think the founders would be just enormously pleased to see what has become of the celebration that they more or less cooked up sitting there in the lobby of the St. Charles Hotel.